What's up everyone, Subterranean here, and today we're going to learn how to make sounds like these. As you can hear, these are some very glitchy, mechanical, robotic sounds. They're somewhat reminiscent of what you might hear in a Transformers film. You also hear sound effects like this in a lot of glitch music, IDM, even dubstep tracks made by artists like Downlink and Excision, who sometimes employ that sort of robot aesthetic. And the only thing that's more crazy than these glitchy sounds is the method that I'm going to use to create them, which might surprise a lot of people because we're going to be using a program that's not commonly associated with music. We're going to be using Adobe's famous photo editor, Photoshop. And like always, in the description box below, we'll have a link where you can download the full Ableton project file. So, let's get started with making our glitchy sounds. And I'm going to delete this original track for now. Now, to start off, you're going to want to have an MP3 file, which we're going to take and mangle up so we can create glitchy sounds. And sadly, this method does not work with WAV files. I've tried it, and once you glitch the WAV file, it will no longer play. This might work with some other audio formats, but I'm just going to go with MP3 because I imagine most of you have MP3 files laying somewhere on one of your hard drives. I'm going to go with a track that I made. We're going to take the MP3 file of that and we're going to glitch it up. We're going to be using my song Squid Squad. So, you're going to want to have your MP3 file ready. I currently have it on the desktop, and let's just delete it from Ableton. And what we're going to do next is we're going to rename the file, and you're going to want to change it from a .mp3 to a .raw file, R-A-W. And it's going to ask you if you want to change the file format to a .raw. It's going to give you a different message on Windows, but it's basically going to say the same thing. And yeah, you're going to want to change it to a .raw because Photoshop obviously cannot import MP3s, at least not straight up right out of the box. And you're going to want to say, yes, I want to use a .raw because that's how we're going to import it into Photoshop. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up Photoshop, and we're just going to drag our new .raw file into Photoshop. And by default for this file, it gives me the correct dimensions, so we're just going to leave those and we're going to click on OK. And now we have the raw file imported and we can actually see the audio waveform sort of right there. Seeing how there's no color hues and it's kind of sideways like this, it just kind of looks like TV static, but it's kind of interesting to see this way. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your paintbrush and you're going to want to draw right here on this photo. So you're going to be making sort of dents in the audio file. Now, when you're drawing on the file right here, you don't want to get too insanely crazy. Basically, don't cover up the whole spectrum here or else you won't be able to play it. But what I suggest is basically just make some nice little dents, just fool around, draw smiley faces, be kind of silly. Just pretty basic stuff. And seeing how this is completely in grayscale, I'm not going to use any other colors because it doesn't matter. And I think we drew enough on the image. Looks pretty funny there, but it doesn't really matter as long as we get our nice glitchy result. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to save this file, and you'll want to set the format to be Photoshop RAW. So let's just save that. And by default, it named the RAW file Squid Squad copy, so it doesn't overwrite our other file. And there we go, now we have the glitched up file. We can just close Photoshop now. Although you might want to leave it open if you feel that your file doesn't have enough glitches in it. You can delete it and then go back, keep drawing, or draw a different pattern, and you can tweak things like that. I haven't really experimented with drawing different shapes or anything like that. I've just sort of squiggled around, but I might actually try that sometime, experimenting with different shapes and seeing if you can get some cool results, and I'd suggest that too. And that's one of the sort of cool things about this glitch method is you're never going to get the same thing twice because you're always drawing in stuff slightly different. So let's just close Photoshop. And now let's take our new file, the copied file, Squid Squad copy.raw, and we'll change that to be .mp3. And you want to use .mp3. And now let's drag this file into Ableton Live. And right off the bat, I would suggest taking your track volume and turning it down significantly because you can get some pretty high peaks in volume here, especially if you have a file that's already pretty quiet. There could be some very loud tones that come in at random and they could totally catch you off guard. And it looks like the warping is being kind of weird here, so I'll just import that again. And I'm going to turn off warping right now. And I'm going to try to skip to the drop. It might actually be a little bit hard to find here. And now here we have our sort of corrupted and glitched file. And you can hear it's done some very interesting things. The file is skipping so much that it sounds like it's playing at an entirely different beats per minute. It's sort of sped up the track. And there are tons and tons of just weird audio artifacts and glitches. It kind of sounds like a skipping CD, except the CD was kind of ate by a dog and, you know, lots of crazy stuff happened. This isn't normal sounding by any means. Now, this just kind of sounds like a mess right now. It's not very usable at all. But what we're going to do to make this usable and to make it sound really cool is I'm just going to take this little segment right here, close to the drop. I think we'll just go right here. It doesn't really matter which exact segment I use. So I'm just going to take the segment of track right here, shorten that up a little bit, and I'll drag it to the beginning of the song. We're going to turn on warping, and this is where stuff gets really interesting. Set the warp mode to beats, and we're going to take the sequence beats per minute here, and we're going to want to set it at a very, very fast BPM. We'll do something like 730. And we're going to have our tempo just set at 140 right here, the standard sort of dubstep speed. What we're doing right here is we have our track, and we told it that it's actually supposed to play super fast. That's the original tempo of the track, and we know it's not, but because it thinks it's at a super fast tempo, now that we have it at a normal tempo like 140, it's going to stretch it like crazy. And when you use the Beats Warp mode in Ableton, it has a tendency to sort of take an audio clip and reverse it a bunch of times to try to warp it to the right BPM. And when that's slowed down and it's supposed to be warping at a slow speed, you get a lot of crazy sort of reverse effects. So actually, let me extend that out a little bit more. I think I'm actually going to set this to be a little bit earlier. We'll try maybe about here. You can hear we have some very, very interesting glitches, particularly ones like this. This one's really cool the way it sort of stutters like that. Now, I like our end result a good bit, but I think we could improve it even more with some editing. So what we're going to do here next is we're going to right-click on our audio file, the stretched one. We'll right-click and we'll click Consolidate. And now we have the stretched out audio file, but now it's no longer being told it's stretched out. Right now, it's being told that it's at the proper BPM of 140. I'm actually going to set this warp mode to be at complex because I think I'm going to do some cool pitch modulation here, and I found that complex works very well for this type of thing. So let's go in here and see if we can make any edits to make this even more glitchy and even more crazy sounding. I think we could take this part and maybe stretch it out a little bit. So let's create a warp marker right here and right here, and just sort of drag that. Let's also create some pitch modulation. We'll go to our envelope, little tab right here. We'll click on transpose modulation, and we'll create a little breakpoint here. We'll just have it go down and then up. I'm just doing stuff at random. It might not sound the best, but it's giving you a good idea of what you can do. I think that's pretty cool. Let's try maybe something here. Very digital sounding. You can kind of tell that's a synth, but it's just being stuttered like crazy. Let's actually take that and stretch it out too. I like to just make warp points like that. See how that sounds? That's really, really nice. And let's actually have that go up in pitch and then go back down to the regular pitch. Do some more pitch modulation here, just sort of random stuff. I'd like to extend this little part out more. Maybe extend just this one bit out. Again, just sort of going in here at random, down and then back up. We'll extend this part out too. You can see they all sort of look the same. See how that sounds? I think we'll have that part go really, really low down. Gradually back up right here. Actually, let's have this go a little bit faster. Have this part go slower. Actually, I don't like that too much. Drag that back here, maybe. We'll see how that sounds. And I think that works well. Now, we have something that's already pretty complex sounding, but I'm going to add some small effects to it just to enhance that sort of robotic sound. First, I'm going to add on a simple delay, and you might know where I'm going with this. I'm going to have a delay which plays really fast and creates a tonal sound. So, on the simple delay, let's click link, and we'll turn sync off. We're going to have this by a specific time. Let's play with the feedback and dry wet settings first. I'll just put this somewhere random. We'll play with these settings first, see if we get a sound that we like. I'll turn my loop on right here. Actually, it's already on, so that works. Having a relatively low feedback and a little bit of a higher dry wet works well here. Maybe 37% dry wet. Actually dial that down a little bit. 29% dry wet. I think that'll work well. And feedback at 6.0. Now I'm going to do something kind of interesting. I'm going to take the time and I'm going to modulate it up and down just sort of randomly to give a sort of pitch shifting effect. You don't want the time to get too low or else it just sounds like a regular delay. It stops sounding tonal, so be kind of careful of that. I wouldn't go any lower than the 40 to 50 millisecond range. When it gets into there, it can start to sound just like regular delay. And now that I just sort of did some random modulations with it going up and down, let's see how that sounds. Let's actually turn that up a bit more. And I think that enhances the robotic sound a good bit. Let's just compare without the delay and with the delay. A lot less dry. Now I'm going to add on an instance of multiband dynamics. I'm going to go for the OTT preset. And this preset sounds pretty good as it is, but I'm going to make a couple changes. Let's play this sound. Here, I'll turn it down a little bit more. And I'm going to tweak the settings of this preset as I listen to this sort of pattern. Drag these high and mid sliders a bit, like this. And it's just a little bit too compressed, so let's turn down that amount a bit. Not too much though. Go for about 80%. And there we go. So, that was my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video and leave a comment as it really helps us out. And please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.